As we've seen and discussed several times, SharePoint is, of course, a portal to allow your users to have access to data. Now, one of the big keys to making sure that our SharePoint deployment is going to be successful is ensuring that our users can easily find the information that they're looking for. Now, we've already seen a couple of different ways that we can do this through managing search. Now what we want to do is turn our attention to how we can manage this in a couple of other ways. Then we're going to take a look at how we can enable some relatively advanced navigation to make sure that our users can easily find the information that they're looking for. How we can create content types to ensure that our data has a consistent structure, and then also how we can take data from one centralized location and publish it out to multiple SharePoint sites. But let's start off by taking a look at a neat little SharePoint 2013 feature called Managed Metadata Navigation. Now, one of the big challenges to navigation inside of SharePoint is the fact that this is going to be set up on every single site. So I need to add or remove links. I have to go in on a site-by-site basis, typically, and add all this in and make all of my different changes. On top of that, I typically have limited control over those links, that they're going to be relatively static, that I just simply go in, I create them, I have to modify them, and away we go from there. That if I'm looking for maybe the ability to have my links be a little bit more flexible, a little bit more hierarchical, my capabilities to do things like that can be limited in certain situations. Not only that, but this can also pose certain SEO or search engine optimization challenges. That we may wind up having URLs with spaces in them. Search engines and users aren't big fans of that. That we can have pages with query strings which search engines really don't like. And that we can also wind up with pages that are just buried layers deep inside of our navigation structure, making it more difficult for a search engine to find that. Or the other big challenge, which is the fact that a search engine is going to see it and go, well, that's buried, it's probably not that important, and wind up demoting that inside of the results. This is where managed metadata navigation comes into play. That basically what this allows me to do is this allows me to set up and control my navigation by utilizing a term set. So all the terms that we're going to wind up using, all the terms that we wind up creating are going to become navigation nodes. And those terms can point to pages, they can point to catalog items, something we'll take a look at a little bit later on in this lesson, and they could also just simply point to URLs. Now, in order to enable managed metadata navigation, a couple of things need to happen. At the site collection level, we're going to need to enable a little feature called SharePoint Publishing. SharePoint Publishing actually activates quite a bit behind the scenes, so even if you're not necessarily using this for the traditional publishing story where I'm going to have my users go in and create pages, you still will quite frequently find yourself activating this feature just to enable some of the other cool things that are going to come along with it, like, for example, managed metadata navigation. We then, at the site level, need to go in and enable our managed navigation. And then finally, we'll need to go into the term store and actually configure how our navigation is going to look. Let's go in and set up our managed metadata navigation on our public site. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire up my browser. And I'm going to navigate on over to http://public.geektrainer.com. Okay. Now what you're going to notice here, just kind of our typical little team site, I want to enable our managed metadata navigation. So I'm going to click on the little gear up top, and I'm going to go to Site Settings, and then I'm going to scroll on down, and I'm going to choose our site collection features. Now that's going to be the key here. I'm looking for our site collection features. So I'm just going to click that, and then I'm going to scroll on down to our SharePoint publishing infrastructure, and I'm going to activate that. And now that that's activated, I'm going to go back to the gear again, and I'm going to hit Site Settings, and now I'm going to go under Navigation. Now inside of Navigation, you'll notice that I have the ability to turn on my Managed Navigation. And I can do this at the Global Navigation, which is going to be up top, or I can do this at the Current Navigation, which is going to be over on the left-hand side. Now this is going to need a term set, so I'm just going to click Create Term Set, and it will automatically set that up for me. And now I'm just going to scroll on down and hit OK. Now, the moment that I do that, let me go back to my team site here. Let me go back home. And what I want to highlight over on the left-hand side and just above the words team site is the fact that there's no links anymore, because all of our links are now going to be managed by the team store. So let me go in to the gear again, and I'm going to go to Site Settings. And let me, over here under our Site Administration, go to Term Store Management. And now what you're going to notice is that there is a term group set up for publicgeektrainer.com, and then there is my team site navigation. Now the big thing that I want to highlight right away, if I go under Intended Use, is you're going to notice there's a little check next to Use this term set for site navigation. Now the way that we're going to create links, once we enable our Manage Metadata Navigation, is by creating brand new terms and having those terms point to whatever it is that we want to link to. So let's go in and create a link to shared documents. So I'm just going to hit the little down arrow here, and let's say Create Term, and we'll call this Documents, and hit Enter. And let's go back to our documents here. Now, if you go in and create the term, and you notice that the little tab up top doesn't appear for setting up navigation, make sure that the little term store actually kept the navigation. Sometimes it doesn't. So we want to make sure, if we just go back to Intended Use, use this term set for site navigation, is make sure that's checked, hit Save, and now when I do that, and I go back to Documents, and I scroll back up to the top, now you're going to notice that I've got my navigation. So like I said, I want this to point to shared documents, so I'm just going to put a little dot next to Simple Link or Header, and let's go ahead and hit Browse, and we'll just choose Documents here, we'll hit Insert, and we'll hit Save. So now that we've created our documents link, let's go in and test it. So we'll just hit our little team site link up at the top left, and now you're going to notice that we've got our documents. And so if I click my little link, that will take us over to the documents page. So by using Managed Metadata Navigation, it gives us very easy capabilities to be able to go in and manage our navigation in one centralized location. Now, as I've mentioned before, organization and consistency will set you free, and fewer places is that truer than in SharePoint. Now, what we want to do is ensure that we're using consistent values, which we can do by using Managed Metadata, and we want consistent columns, which we're going to do by utilizing content types. Content types are all about ensuring consistency. That a content type gives us the ability to ball up inside of one entity columns, workflows, event receivers, template types, and information management policies. So let's say, for example, that one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to create a time off request form. And we knew that we were going to be using this inside of multiple sites. Now, I don't care what site it is that we're going to use it in. A time off request is a time off request is a time off request. So I want to make sure that we've got that level of consistency. So how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to create a content type. And then that way, anytime that we need a time off request, we just go in and we reuse that content type. And what's also very nice is that if later on we decide that there are certain columns or certain policies that we need to modify or add on, I only have to go to one centralized location to make all of that happen. Now, one of the challenges with content types is that by default, content types are only going to be available to just that site and all the child sites. Well, if we're truly looking for consistency, we want to share out these content types with potentially the entire enterprise. And this is where the Content Type Hub comes into play. That inside of Managed Metadata Services, what I can do is I can indicate where our Content Type Hub is. And all the content types from that site collection will then get pushed out to every single site collection in every single web application that's pointing to that managed metadata environment. Now, there are a couple little things you want to keep in mind about the Content Type Hub. First of all, is that while it does give me that centralized site collection for global content types, it's not going to deploy out any server level resources. So any modifications that might be needed to the web.config file to support that, not going to get pushed out. Any DLLs for, say, workflows or event receivers are not going to get pushed out either. So any server level resource is not going to get pushed out. But anything that's at the site level will automatically get pushed out. Now, when it comes to content types in general, I want to control who it is that's allowed to modify them. Because what you're going to be doing is creating a taxonomy that's going to be reused in a lot of different locations. So we want to make sure that not everybody is able to create content types. And this is going to be doubly true when we're dealing with our Content Type Hub, because this is going to get pushed out to the entire SharePoint farm. It's going to get pushed out to the entire environment. So as a result, what I recommend as a best practice is to create a site collection specifically for the Content Type Hub, and then limit access to that to only people whom you want creating global content types. Now let's go in and take a look at where we're going to configure our Content Type Hub and go in and create a content type and a list to use that content type. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect out to Central Administration. And under my Managed Service Applications, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose my Managed Metadata Service. Now you'll notice that I'm clicking just to the right of it because what I want to do is I want to activate the ribbon and I want to hit Properties. And so now if I scroll on down, this is where I can identify my Content Type Hub. So if I want all the content types from my intranet site to get pushed out, then all I have to do is punch in that location right there and then hit OK. Now, one of the things that might happen is you might get an error message telling you that a feature needs to be activated on the Content Type Hub site. And that's exactly what I got here. That what we need to do is we need to activate the feature on the Content Type Hub site collection to actually push out our content types. So let's go in and do that now. So what I'm going to do is navigate on over to our intranet site. So now let's get in and hit the gear and we'll go to Site Settings and then we'll scroll on down and we'll go to our Site Collection Features. And then you'll notice that we've got our Content Type Syndication Hub. I'm just going to hit Activate. And now this is set up as our hub. Now, while we're on the intranet site, let's go ahead and set up a content type. Now, the content type that I'm going to create here, I'm actually going to use in an upcoming demo where I'm going to take a list and publish it out to other sites. And in order to do that, we need to set up a content type. Now, what I want to do is I want to publish out products. In particular, I want to publish out computer products. So what you're going to notice is I'm going to go in and set up our content type. Now, before I get in and do that, let me also go back to our service applications. Let me go to my Manage Metadata Service. I created a term group called Geek Trainer, and underneath there, I created a term set called Product Category with a couple of different terms. The big one from my demo here is going to be computers with desktops and laptops. Now let's go back over to our intranet site. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the gear and I'm going to go back to site settings. And then under site settings, under galleries, I have my site columns and my site content types. My content types are going to be a collection of columns. Those need to be site columns. So let me go in and create my site column here by just going in, hitting create. We'll call this product category. We'll put the little dot next to manage metadata. We'll scroll down and we'll choose our product category. And that's where all the values are now going to come from. So let's go ahead and hit OK. And now let's go back to site settings again, and let's go to our content types and create our brand new content type. And let's call this Geek Trainer product. And for our little type here, for the parent type, I'm going to choose item. Now, one of the cool things that content types allows you to do is it allows you to set up inheritance. So that way, if you need to go from generalized to specialized, then you can do that by setting up whatever you need the parent to be. So if maybe we were going to be putting together bids, and we were going to have bids for private industries and bids for government organizations, there might be some different columns that we need to collect from each. But at the end of the day, there's still both a bid. So I could create my bid content type with all the columns that are going to be generic to both, and then we could go in and set up the two specific ones. In my case, we're just going to be the one, so I'm just going to leave that with the item as the parent, and I'm going to hit OK. Now what you're going to notice from inside of here is that we've got the ability to set up our workflow, we've got the ability to set up our information management policy, and then down below we've got the ability to add on our columns. So I'm going to choose Add from Existing Site Columns. I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to go grab that product category, and let's hit Add, and then we'll scroll down and hit OK. So now we've got our content type. Now a content type is a lot like a schema. So it's not the actual list or table, if you will. It's just simply, this is what we want to have on the list. So what I need is I need a list. So I'm going to hit the little gear, and I'm going to say add an app, and I'm going to choose a custom list. And we'll give this a name of products and hit create. Now, one of the very interesting things about content types is that by default, the adding on of a content type to a list is disabled. So we need to go in and enable that. So you'll notice that if I bring up my list here and I click the list tab and I go to my list settings, that my content type doesn't appear inside of here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Advanced Settings. I'm going to put my little dot next to Yes. I'm going to scroll down, hit OK. It's just going to pop back to my settings page. And then you'll notice that I can add in that content type. So let me hit my little link. Let me scroll on down. Our Geek Trainer product. We'll hit add. We'll hit OK. And now what you're going to notice if I scroll down is that under our columns, we now have that product category column, and you'll notice the used in, that's telling us where this is coming from. Now, I also want to get rid of item, so I'm going to do that just by clicking on item, and we'll hit delete, and we'll hit OK. And now the only content type is just going to be Geek Trainer product. So if I go back to my products here, now I can go add in a couple of items. So let's say new item, and we'll give this a name of Desktop 5000, and you'll notice that we could actually navigate to our desktops, hit select, hit OK, and then we'll hit save. Or we could also go in, say new item, and let's say Notebook 4000, and then we'll go ahead and say laptop. There we go. And you'll notice that it'll even give us our autocomplete suggestion. So let me go ahead and choose that and hit save. And so now we've got our little notebook. And let's go ahead and create one more item. And let's give this a name of Notebook 3000. And then again, laptops. Cool. So the big takeaway that I want you to get out of this is the fact that we can create a content type. That's going to be our collection of columns, and that could then be reused across multiple lists. And it could also be used with a little thing called cross-site publishing. Cross-site publishing allows us to take a list and make it available to multiple sites. So that way, if we've got certain information that needs to be globally shared out, we can do this by setting up cross-site publishing. Now, what's also very cool is that all the items inside of that list will actually become pages. If you want to get fancy, you could even go in and set up different templates for those pages. And even though they're stored inside of one centralized site, they can look like they appear inside of multiple sites throughout our entire organization. So let's go back and take a look at how we could publish that out. Now, before we do that, I do want to highlight that last little bullet point there, which is the fact that in order for this to work properly, we do need SharePoint Search to be enabled. This is actually built on top of SharePoint Search. And whenever you go in and create a brand new list to be published out, it needs to be indexed. An incremental crawl is fine, or if you've got continuous, even better, but it does need to be indexed before it will become available to be connected to from the other side. So let's take a look at our little products and how we could publish that out and make that available on our public site. So what I did is I just went back to my little browser. We still have our products up and running here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to publish that out. Now, in order to publish it out, I need to first go to Site Settings, and then under our Site Collection Features, I need to activate the cross-site collection publishing. So let me just activate that. And now I can go back to my list. I can hit List, List Settings, and then right here under Catalog Settings, I can then just put a little check next to enable this library as a catalog. Now, if you wanted to make anonymous access available, then you could go ahead and hit Enable Anonymous Access. I don't. Now, you'll also notice it'll ask us what components we want to make up our URL, and I want the product category and the title. So we'll just grab both of those, And then you'll also notice that I'm going to choose my product category for navigation. And that's actually going to set up our hierarchy here. So what's going to happen is we'll be able to go from computers down to our laptops, and then down to the individual items that have been flagged as laptops. So now, let me hit OK. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of force the issue here. Back over on the other tab, I've got my central admin site. I'm going to go into Manage My Service Applications. I'm going to go to SharePoint Search. And I'm going to go to my content source. And I'm just going to hit the little drop down, and I'm just going to tell it to start an incremental crawl. I'm just going to force the issue. And then we'll just give that a couple of minutes. If I don't crawl it, it's not going to be available for the other side to be able to connect to. So that's why I want to go in and crawl that right now. Now that our crawl is complete, we can go ahead and set up our little link. So I'm going to open up a brand new tab, and I'm going to head on over to public.geektrainer.com. And in order for this to work, we need to activate a couple of features. Now, one of them is going to be at the site collection level, the publishing feature, which we already did. But we also need to activate at the site level the exact same thing, that we need to activate at the site level as well, our publishing. So I'm just going to scroll on down and hit activate. Now, once I do that, if I go back to my site settings again, you'll notice over on the left-hand side under Site Administration that I've got my Manage Catalog Connections. So let me click that. Let me click Connect. So now we see the catalog. And if we want to connect to it, all we have to do is just simply hit Connect. So now it's going to ask us about our categorization. It's going to ask us what we want the root of the hierarchy to be. So let me just go ahead and navigate. And I'm going to choose computers. And what this will do is this will actually just display our computers. So now I'm going to hit OK. And we'll let it go ahead and just go with all the defaults here. And I'm just going to scroll down and hit OK. Now, what you're going to notice over on the left-hand side is that I now have my desktops and my laptops. So if I click desktops, this will show me all of my desktops. And if I click laptops, this will show me all of my laptops. So it's a very nice, easy way that we can incorporate data from one list into multiple sites throughout our entire enterprise. There's how you can manage SharePoint content. I'll see you in the next lesson.